need to make a technical pit stop, or your kids will be crying and fighting, or the postman will ring, obviously twice, don't hesitate and go ahead, because you'll be for sure missing some crucial information, but you'll be able to retrieve them on the YouTube page of the Houseful project. So as I was mentioning, after the debate, we'll have a Q&A session. So don't be surprised and don't be offended, especially if your microphones are now automatically switched off. It doesn't mean that we want to mute you. Right on the contrary, we do want to let you have your say. So if during the debate you want to make a comment or ask a question, please rely on the chat box on your right. And so straight to the chat box, it's for those who might not be familiar with this platform, GoToWebinar, you should have on your right side, this is at least the configuration I have on an Apple computer. You should have a window with the chat, and you might type your comments and your question during the debate over there, and my colleagues Hilaria and Oiku from Icons will collect them and then forward them to our panelists during the Q&A session. So I guess it's now 2:03. It's been quite quick. Hope everybody has finished this coffee. We can now really kick off. So after this practical information, we can really start our webinar. The title, as you might know, because you all get registered, is From Bill of Materials to Material Passports, the importance of tracking materials for a circular economy. But please don't get scared, because it's not so technical as it might seem. There's also a lot of philosophy into it. And to dig into this broad and very interesting topic, we have some special guests joining from Amsterdam. First of all, Thomas Rau, founder of Tantu, and among other things, co-author with Sabine Oberhuber, that we all see on the screen, of the magnificent book Material Matters. And I'm saying that from the bottom of my heart, really, a very enriching reading that should be made mandatory, I guess, for all our political and economic leaders. And that, as I've already said to Sabine, reminded me a lot was when I studied sociology at the university. I mean, by reading those books, I often had the impression that what I read was so obvious, so natural, that I was astonished by the fact that, like, the other people didn't get it. But to do so, we need someone to put that into words and to print it on paper. And that person is, together with Sabine, Thomas Rau. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
And then from Barcelona, we have Licinio Alfaro, Head of Sustainability. Sorry if I read your title because it's a bit long, of the Sustainability Department for ITEC or ITEC. I don't know if I have to pronounce it at the Spanish or English way. The Catalonia Institute of Construction Technology. Welcome, Licinio, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Diego.
And then from Lyon, myself, Diego Giuliani, journalist for Icons Innovation Strategies, a foundation in charge of the dissemination of several EU projects. But there's not much to say about me, because I'm here just as a tool to try to make this debate as lively and interesting as possible. But as a journalist, unfortunately, I will probably I might happen to, since it's my job to make like complicated things, difficult things easier, I might be simplifying too much. In that case, I invite you all not to hesitate and to step in and to correct me. All right. So Licinio and Thomas are here with us because ITEC and Tantu are both partners of Houseful, a 4-year EU-funded project, which is about 20, if I'm not wrong, right next month, aimed at fostering the implementation of circular solution in the housing sector, which means a lot of things. Management of water, waste, and so on, but also a very interesting social aspect and pioneering in that case, because it's been tested on, let's say, borderline social areas and difficult areas were home to families with poor income and difficult condition. And as you might guess, in such a context, like bringing people to adopt embrace circular practices is quite a challenge. And obviously, one of the focus of this project is also materials, which is the topic which brings us here all today. And right on this topic, and to let you understand, first of all, the importance of such a circular approach right in the housing sector for a global circular approach, I suggest you all like to spend just 3 minutes, no, probably even less, watching this small video that should be soon shared. Okay, see you just later.
Everything's found.
We might have some problems with the audio.
Active materials, 40% of its available energy, 30% of its available water, in addition to producing 30% of our total waste and 35% of our greenhouse gas emissions. Radical actions are needed to preserve the environment by turning the current linear approach into a circular and sustainable one. The EU-funded HOUSEFUL project embraces this challenge by recovering food waste at home level, reducing waste destined to landfills, reusing rain, grey and black waters, and fostering the adoption of renewable energy. Overall, this approach will decrease CO2 emissions by 60%. Magic? No. By combining HOUSEFUL's 11 solutions, we'll have the chance to manage our materials, waste, water, and energy in buildings at a circular and holistic level. These will be tested in 4 demo sites in Vienna and nearby Barcelona, and will be adopted later in Europe and beyond to make the housing sector more sustainable, therefore protecting our environment. Keen to know more about HOUSEFUL? Visit houseful.eu.
So this was just a short overview of the solution tested by the HOUSEFUL project, and the figure given at the beginning were quite impressive. So let that give us a dimension of the what we have at stake. But then finally, because I'm not the star here, let's finally let our panelists speak. Let's go to our guest. It might seem kind of a bit provocative, but I'd like to ask Thomas, first of all, to explain us what do the Truman Show, an astronaut, and a light bulb have in common with circularity? So in other words, I think what is turn 2, and how did you come to such a revolutionary idea?
Yes, yeah, Diego, thank you very much for the introduction. I think it's very simple because I'm an architect and I have an architecture office, and we thought sustainability is very important, and we were wondering why there's no more progress. And then we realized if we don't change the architecture of the system, nothing will change. Because sustainability is about optimizing the system, but it's not about transforming the change. So that's why I started together with my wife Sabine. We started 12 years ago together Turn 2, and Turn 2 is an architecture about the system. So a very simple answer, Diego.
Okay, I guess we'll get deeper into it during your following presentation. So let's keep the details to let the audience to be still thrilled and wanting to wait for what is about to follow. Now, like Licinio, I'd like from you, let's still speak a bit about philosophy. You might think I'm a bit of a maniac, but the circular approach to the building sector also shares a very big ambition to the of a change of paradigm to the housing sector, which is turning the buildings from, at the end of their life, from material cemeteries to material banks. So I guess you have all probably already understood, but there's someone among us who knows better than anyone else what we are speaking about, and this person is Licinio Alfaro. Welcome.
Thanks, Diego, for this question. I'm going to talk about exactly this in my presentation, but we need to know that the circular economy is a change. And like all changes, it affects us in an important way. It is impossible to change our society, to do things differently, and to maintain our comfort line. It's totally impossible. But on the other hand, there are too many examples of changes imposed from the top of society that have not worked in society at large. So what can we do with this? Because we have the idea to change it. And in my opinion, the answer lies in digitalization. The human being receives in a very natural way the technological changes that are taking place of high complexity, but with an easy communication. It is only necessary to see how we have become accustomed to new technologies in mobile phones. Without an apparent effort. So it's something that is very easy to the people, to the human behavior. So the key is in this digitalization, is my opinion. But this digitalization must be designed and must incorporate sustainable criteria. And of course, it must to incorporate the circular economy concept. This is basic.
Okay, so the role of digitalization from a circular perspective, we'll get deeper into it with your presentation, Licinio, but now it's time to give the floor back to Thomas, who I guess prepared something for us. I give you the floor, Thomas.
Yes, I prepared. I hope that works. You can see my screen, hopefully.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I make it bigger. So, it's a small extract of the book, which is written with my wife and me, Material Matters, and we call it the Maxit, the mental exit, because we think if we don't change the system, nothing will change. Then we are still optimizing. So we are talking about something that's beyond sustainability, because the big issue is how can we decouple economic growth from the use of natural resources. I think this is one of the big challenges we have to answer. And I want to show one phenomenon of this system. Maybe some of you knows the Phobos cartel, but this is a light bulb which is working since 1901. So it's now working for more than 120 years. And it's still working. And in 1924, there was an agreement between Osram and the French company and Philips. They said, okay, we designed a solution, but we should design a problem, because if we don't have a problem, then the client is not coming back and is buying a new one. So they start an agreement, and they call this the Phobos cartel, to manipulate the light bulb process, the production process, in a way that every light bulb has a completely breakdown after 1,000 hours. So that means new doesn't exist. New in this system means it's not yet broken. Because one of the characteristics of this system is that we have power and responsibility. It's completely separate. So some people, they have the power, they do something, in this case, they organize a problem. And then we have the user. He wants just to have the performance, but he has to get the owner, and he has to take the responsibility for something which he didn't decide. So that doesn't work, and we think this is one of the problems we have right now. And then we have this this kind of events. We all know it. In Glasgow, it was the COP21. So These guys, they come together 21 times, and in fact, nothing happened. Because the government and the governments, they just organize, or they have an agreement what is possible. They never have an agreement what is nearly necessary. And this is very dramatic. I mean, could you imagine that your partner is drinking maybe a glass of wine once a week, and suddenly you discover that he's an alcoholist, and then you ask him, please change your attitude, because otherwise I have to leave you, because I don't want to have an alcoholist as a partner. And your partner said, okay, I will stop drinking in 2030 for 25%, in 2040 for 68%, and I will be alcohol neutral in 2050. So then we know this relation is over. And what we are organizing now, a completely breakdown in the relation between humanity and planet Earth. Because we should realize, and Diego already mentioned that we are guests on planet Earth. We all know this beautiful photograph, and this round buffet, this round table is not from Houseful, it's not from Shell, it's from no one called Earth. And if you're somewhere where nothing is from you, then you know, oh, wait a minute, I'm the guest. And the Earth, so where we are the guest, is a closed system. So what we have, and what we don't have, we don't have. And in a closed system, everything is worthful. There's no worthless, doesn't exist in a closed system. And if everything is limited in a closed system, and we have a look to art, then in art we know there is no scarcity, let's say, of Rembrandts, of Picassos. No, there's no scarcity because it's a limited edition. So if we are aware that something is limited, then we call it a limited edition. Then we spend a lot of money, for example, for museums to show it to the next generation. So, but materials are the artworks of planet Earth. And everything which is not growing in a closed system is a limited edition. So we have the limited edition material supplies. So scarcity, resource scarcity doesn't exist because it's a limited edition. And there's one other aspect which is very important, that we have to realize that our existence is temporary. That means our needs are temporary. And that means every answer on our temporary needs is a temporary aggregate, like a building. A building is a temporary aggregate. So it's something which is not forever. It's temporary because we know there is a moment that no one likes this building anymore. So we have to realize that everything is temporary, but the consequences are permanent. And then we talk about circularity. Circularity is not like sustainability, optimizing the system. This is also important to do, but it's not a transforming process. Circularity is designing a new system. And I will just mention some steps, not all of them. So what are the characteristics of this new system? I just mentioned the light bulb, and with Turn 2, which is already mentioned, we're also a consultant firm company, and we were a consultant from the airport in Amsterdam, and they were just finishing the new lounge for 15 years, and they need light. And then we discovered there is no lighting system which is running 15 years every day, 24 hours. So we found Philips said, you know what, we don't want your organized problem, what you call a light system. You can offer us light. And if you need a lighting system for that, we can talk about it. And mind you, if you need electricity, I mean, we don't know, maybe you need white wine or red wine or milk, whatever. But if you need electricity to deliver us light, then the electricity bill is for you and not for us, because you need electricity to deliver the performance and not us. And then they showed up with a lighting system which is running for 15 years without problems, and you see the electricity bill was with 1/3 less than in a traditional way. So,
sorry, Thomas, if I step in, I don't want to go too fast probably, but I'd like to stress about what you were just saying, because I think it's really the core of your work of Turn 2 and of the like radical change of system and mindset you're speaking about, that basically the revolutionary change of business model you theorized with that managed to match the interest of the producers and the interest of the users. That's
exactly.
probably the Trojan horse. Because so
Yeah,
far, as you said, with the light bulb example, the producers had the interest that their product basically break down after a while to be replaced and bought again by the users, consumers. Why the
exactly.
users just wanted a product. So
Yes.
the real Trojan horse in what you did, what you achieved, was really finding a way to match the interests of these two players by, correct me if I'm wrong, shifting the responsibility and bringing it back, the responsibility of the products back to the producers.
Exactly. This is the service contract means, which is separate in the system, power and responsibility, so the producer and the consumer. So we bring the interests together, so we have a connection between the power and responsibility, because if you can't sell your product and you can't get rid of your decisions and you have to organize a service, then you create a completely different product because you will get it back. So this is a completely, I mean, this is a very financial incentive to organize or to bring together power and responsibility in the market. This is just one of quite a lot of examples we did, but Light as a Service is a very famous one. We did it with carpet, with washing machines, with facades, so with everything. But let's go to the next. I mean, data is also a service, and then we thought about, so what is waste? I mean, in fact, waste is material without identity. So waste is material without identity, and the recycling company, what they do is they take the waste and said, hey, wait a minute, your name is not waste. I know your name is copper. So if we give material an identity even afterwards, then it's getting material again. So then 10 years ago, we had the idea, okay, if waste is material without identity, we should organize that every material has an organized identity, which is documented and registered in a material passport. So we introduced 10 years ago the material passport in the real estate sector, and we started the first buildings with the material passport. Then after a while, we realized that the surface of planet Earth is also limited. And for this limitation, we organized a kind of a data library. It's called Cadastre. So Cadastre is the library for the limited surface of planet Earth. And then we did the next step, said, okay, let's organize then the cadastre for materials. So a digital platform, a digital library where all materials which are used in buildings are registered and archived, so that humanity knows exactly where are those limited edition called material, where are they right now? And to explain this a little bit more, I will show you a small video.
Install, use, recreate. Install, use, recreate. Install, use, recreate. Everything is temporary. Only the consequences are permanent. The sun makes finitude in nature infinitely available. Data makes finitude of materials in the circular economy infinitely available. In a linear economy, materials get wasted, finitely available. Mining, construction, consumption, demolishing, waste, depreciated buildings, materials without an identity. Finitude is final. The Earth is a closed system. Once it's gone, it's gone. In a closed system, all materials are limited editions. Let's go back. The final destination becomes the starting point. Hindsight becomes forethought. Right off becomes right down. Anonymity becomes identity. Worthless becomes valuable. Buildings become material depots. Real estate becomes mobile estate. CO2 production becomes CO2 reduction. Install, use, recreate. Install, use, recreate. The cadaster of materials, the madaster, documents the identity of materials, generating continuous access to materials. Your data is online, secure, and always available to you. This results in safety, safer choices, health, better design, convenience, effective internal and external communication, value, financial and circular residual value of materials, insight, search, analyze, steer, and manage, reduced cost, for instance, discount on insurances, lower financing needs, value for money, circularity, eliminates waste, documenting existing buildings leads to material mines, documenting new buildings leads to material depots, valuation of materials leads to buildings as a material bank. Install, use, recreate. Material with an identity always keeps its value. Madaster.
So sorry once again, Thomas, if I step in again, but I think this is a further step in this like revolutionary approach, which deserves to be stressed. And correct me if, as a journalist, I simplified too much, but basically here, like the main pillars are on one hand, like material passports, I mean IDs, which like the IDs we have in our pockets, basically certify the identity of the materials with all of their properties, their age and everything, and give them back the right to exist on one hand, as you said, and the other side, this cadaster of materials, this madaster, which allows to know where these materials are to find, and therefore helps us to go back, like to quit the idea, the logic of material symmetries, and like to embrace the idea that all of these material in this closed system, as we said before, are basically a mine of gold. And what I'd like to stress, because that is also part of the revolution and probably the most important part, is that we're now speaking about like the building sector, but the same approach can be applied to everything.
Yeah,
right, Thomas?
yeah, that's correct. We just projected on the building sector because we are architects, but it's also good to know that in between the Houseful project, we are working with the Madaster platform to register all those kind of materials. Maybe we go then to the next step, because it's nice that everything is a service and we have data and we give materials and identity, but what does it mean then for the building process? What does it mean for the design? So do we have to change our design, or can we do it in the same way? And we think we have to change the design completely, because if we realize this, then every building has to be designed as a material depot, because it's a temporary aggregate. We need limited editions to create a temporary aggregate, and then we should organize it in a way that's in a material depot, because we know it's temporary. So there will be a moment nobody likes the building anymore. So, and then we organize it already that everybody can take out the materials out of the building. So you see here a motor, but I think in the same way in the future, or not even the future, I will show you some examples which we already did years before, so that we organize the building as a motor, or maybe in another way, we should stop to build a building. We should organize a logistical process with the result, a building. And a logistical process has a completely different mindset than just to build a building. And because of the time, I just show you one building. This is the headquarters of the Triodos Bank. Maybe you heard about it. It's the most sustainable bank in the world, and they want to have a new headquarters. So we designed that, and this is the first completely remountable wooden office building in the world. So it's completely designed as a temporary aggregate. So if nobody likes the building anymore on this site in 10, 20 or 50 years, doesn't matter, then we can take out everything without losing any value of the materials. And every material has a value, and because all the materials are registered in Madaster, and in Madaster, one of the tools in Madaster is that you can see what is the value of the materials in my building now, in 10 years or in 20 years. And so every building is not just a material depot, but it also has a lot of extra value, because every material is registered, and the worthless building is organized by valuable materials. So here you see one of the elements. It's a wooden element building, and you see the screws. So we need more than 165,000 screws to create the building, because all the connections are dry connections, because we want to take out everything after, we don't know, 20 years or 40 years. And then you see one of the advantages. I mean, if you build a building the traditional way, we should use 18 months to build the building. We organize the logistic process and we just need 13 months. So beside that we have to change our mindset, but the result is a huge financial incentive if we organize our attitude in a different way. And of course, it's a CO2 positive building. It's not only a depot of material, but it's also a depot of CO2. And once again, here you see the screws. By the way, we used one type of screw in the whole building, just to be sure that there's no misunderstanding about the screws.
So the benefit, like you showed us some benefit, especially for the environment, they are huge. But let's not forget that we're trying to shake with this new approach, let's say an economic sector. I mean, there are lots of interest involved and players who might be, let's say, a bit disturbed by this kind of approach. But as you said, and that's very important, because that's an argument, that's a Trojan horse, which can convince the players of the sector, like tearing down a building would cost a lot of money. Instead of big money to tear down a building, you can make money out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this is very important, Diego, what you say. I think if we can show the financial incentives of this different kind of acting or thinking, then we can organize the change very quickly, because the trigger in the old system is always money. And we should serve this trigger with the fact to show the financial incentives of the circular economy, to show the incentive of the circular building, like with this building. This is the next slide. I hope that works. Yeah. So what you see here is, I mean, this is not the real value, but of course, Madaster can calculate the value of the materials after 10 years or 30 years or 40 years. And the bank said, okay, we want to go with our depreciation of the building until 2040. So it was about 30 years. And then Madaster was calculating, so what is the value of the material in 2030? And without the energy we need and without the human power we need. So, and then we discovered it was about 18%, round about 80% of the investment costs right now. So the bank is the first client in the world where the depreciation of the building is not going back to zero. So we're not destroying value. It's going back to 18%. because whatever happens, we still have the value of the material. So this is a huge financial incentive if your depreciation is not going back to 0, but it's going back to 80%. And maybe one last aspect to show, so where does it go? Where does this journey is going? I mean, this is what we call a value creation chain. Everything starts with the earth on the left side, and then we have the mines, they're mining material, and then we have people who wants to have the material, and then they're adding value, they make a product, they have the producer, and then the user, he wants to have the performance, so that's why you have to buy the product. But then if he doesn't need, let's say, if he doesn't need the vacuum cleaner anymore, he's the last station. He's the final station in the value creation chain. So after, there's no one after the consumer. So he can think about it to keep it or to give it to the kids, or but at least it's getting waste. So the value creation chain is not a value creation chain, it's a value destroying chain, because at least we are destroying all the values which were created before. But what you see, what is typical for this chain is that everybody has someone in the forward direction who wants to take it over. And could you imagine that we organize this effect in the other direction, that we say, okay, I can give everybody where I get something from before in the value creation chain, I can give it back to the same person. So let's say I get something from Diego, I use it, I don't want to give it anymore, and then I'm completely sure I can give it back to Diego. So Diego is thinking about the fact, okay, I can give it to Thomas, but I will get it back. So let's say, sorry for the word, but if I give him shit, I will get shit back. So you introduce a lot of responsibility that you see whatever you do, you will get it back. And then we combined the value creation chain and the forward, which is now a really value creation chain, and the value sustain chain. So the material is somewhere in the forward direction, let's say from the left to the right, or it's somewhere in the backward direction from the right to the left. It's in the forward direction to create a value, and it's in the backward direction to sustain the value. And I mean, at least, we just talk about the light bulb, but at least material is a service because it's limited. So the mines are the library for materials. We don't, in the future, we don't have to get owner of material to create a temporary aggregate. We just rent it out. We keep it as a service. And that means the mines they have a constant income, so they get the rent, like the library gets rent because it's renting out the books. So you should see it's like a big library, so it's not about books, but you can rent books out and you give it back. It's about the same over material, and we call this a perpetual material chain, material as a service. So these are now the English book is also ready. So if you want to read everything in English, so in December we have the English version of material matters. But hopefully you get a small impression what it means to change the architecture of the system, and how do we have to handle material in the future. Because one thing is, nobody knows the future. So if you don't know the future, you can't do anything for the future, but we can organize now something with future. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Thomas, for all the elements you gave us. It's just like a preview of your book, and I suggest really everybody to read it, because you'll find way more than Thomas had the chance to share with us in a few minutes. You probably now better understand why I spoke of philosophy, because we're now approaching a full change of mindset, new set of values, but also like a radical shift of business model. And as we already partially mentioned, thanks to Thomas, one of the tools are the material passports. And this is something Licinio is very familiar with. And he also anticipated us with the big role of digitalization and technology can play in this process. And within the implementation of this tool, Licinio, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Diego. I think it's we need to talk about this complex proposal. I think it's not easy, and maybe we have we have a clear idea, but we need to convert this idea in reality. I try to explain in a simple way. I don't know it can be possible, but I will try it. Okay, we manage cities, but what information do we have about them? In the end, they are a blank canvas for us. Why the cities are not sharing their information? If the buildings are public, we should be able to access the information of this building. We have paid for these buildings. It's a public building, so it's something that it's from the people, no? In my opinion, the information on these buildings must be public. We must know how much it costs to maintain, or what their energy consumption is, or what they can contribute to the circular economy. We are using many raw materials in the construction sector, and these materials are inside buildings, inside bridges, inside the streets. But what information we have today about this? Maybe it will cost us a lot to paint our city with information, but we must start now. It's something that we can be very, very profitable to the future. And if it's not only a question about public buildings, if they are private buildings, why can I share my building information from my personal building? Maybe it's interesting to share information. This information helps me to raise the price of my building. Maybe I am interested on share private information of my building. But the question is to create the enough information structure to have the capacity to share all of this information. Maybe we start with a little information, and at the end we can have a lot of information of our cities. But it's very, very important to have the clear idea to start to incorporate all of this information in our cities. And I say before that the one important thing is the digitalization. Inside the digitalization, we have the digital models. But I'm not talking about the classical digital models. I suppose that when you think of digital models, you're thinking of something like this. Okay, it's correct, it's normal. This is the classical way to create a digital model in a 3D form, but we need more than this. We can maybe it's possible to calculate the cost of this building or the number of windows. But when it takes things of digital models, it is thinking of something like this. It's the same, but it's maybe it's not really the same. I'm aware that everything looks very small. Don't worry, I will zoom it later. But now I need to explain the structure of this information. On the left, we have all the raw materials. It's the classical information if we need the bill of quantities of a building. In the middle, we have the construction section. If we have a material, but I don't know how this material is joined with the construction section, it's very difficult to know if I can extract it from the building. So it's important to have this relation, to have this information. I have my brick in the left column, but I have the wall in the center column. And I know if this brick is have a joined in a chemical way, or in a physical way, or it's something that it's easy to recover. This information is basic that we can incorporate into our digital models. On the right, you can see the total building. This is an example for a highway, 1 kilometer of a highway. And I have information also about the earthworks, structures, etc. Thanks to organize the information at this level, we can extract not only data from the digital model, we can extract information. I will zoom in and you can see all these raw materials, the concrete, galvanized steel, but it's not enough, the information with a list of materials. We need how they are connected with the construction sectors section, and how we can recover this material. The information in this construction section is on the right, and of course we can organize all of these construction sections in different structure manages to know more about this building or this highway or this street. We can separate all of these materials by structure, by landscaping, or by drainage, etc.
So sorry, Lucinio, I just step in for a sec, like to check if I understood, and to let probably even our audience to be sure that they have understood. But I have the impression that through what you're saying, we're really getting closer to what we were speaking about, the idea of transforming materials of symmetry of materials into a bank of materials, because basically through the material passports, we'll have all the information of any single element, like building the house, classified, knowing what kind of material has been used, when it was first used, how is life expectation, and so on. And at the same time, thanks to this new completely revolutionary way of designing buildings, technology allows to match this information with how many elements of that kind have been used for that building, how much of that material is present in that building. And this kind of database allows basically to see the building not only as a temporary tool, but something which is fully reusable. Did you understand well?
Yes, this is the idea, and there are a lot of information. I can't imagine to do this manually. It's impossible. We are designing all of these new digital models with all of this information inside it, and this is the key. It's totally impossible to have all of this information and to manage in a clear way or in an easy way if you need to do this in a manually way. So this is the idea. You are designing this kind of buildings, but all of this information is inside on these buildings. You are putting your window, and the window has all this information inside. You are connected the window with the wall, and you know it's you can recover this window or not. Imagine that you are incorporating all of this information in a building like this. It's totally impossible. It's really very expensive, but you only are worried about to create the digital model, and all of the information is inside. In the same time you are creating this digital model, you have all of this information. Okay, I continue. In that case, it's very important to have this idea of the project. When we talk about databases, we are working on data and we are working with information. It's not the final objective, but when we talk about databases, we are structuring all of this information. In that case, we are using our own database. It calls BEDEC Sustainability. And to have the most rigor and to have the most correct basic information, we have an agreement with Ecoinben. Ecoinben is one of the most important raw material databases in the world. So our database has information about the construction section and the raw materials and the other information at material levels come from Ecoinben. This is an information very useful and very powerful. And this database has more than 22 indicators, more than 800 and 1,000 elements, and more than this 98 elements has environmental information. It's a enormous database that it has been working the last 40 years. It's not common in Europe to have this kind of databases, because in Spain we have the necessity to create this kind of databases about how we are working with the public process to contract buildings. So it's something that we have 20 years ago, and we use it to incorporate all of this environmental information. This kind of databases has information about circular economy, but they have information about climate change, eutrophication, land use, ecotoxicity, etc. All of this information comes from the environmental product declarations. This is a kind of certification, a kind of sustainable certification that help us to incorporate environmental data from the materials. So it's a reliable data, and you have information from more than 800,000 elements. In that case, when we relate the information with or the information with a database like this, and with other databases, this is a graphic from UNTAPE, and we can see which materials will be not in the future. It's something that we can allow us to have knowledge. This is the idea. If I identify the quantity of materials in my building, and I know which materials it can be in the future on the earth, I can to plan how is the best materials to use in a building instead other materials. One key is the database, and the other part is the software. I don't want to explain a lot of things about the software. It's just the software that we use in the Houseful project to incorporate all of this data into the digital model. Is thanks to this software that we are working at knowledge level. We can praise decisions thanks to this knowledge, because knowledge is really is what we know, and we need to incorporate all of this knowledge into this digitalization. This is the most important part.
So
Data.
just very quickly, I just would step in very quickly to remind everybody that we're not speaking about dreams. I mean, it's something really concrete that iTech is testing the frame of the Houseful project through, if I'm not wrong, 4 demo sites, right? Am I?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, there's a test which has been like is probably still ongoing, but it means that it's really the revolution is really at reach. It's there,
Yeah.
and I guess the Houseful project experience might have been helpful for you also to find out what the obstacles are in implementing such solutions, because I mean they're there. What should be done, like to speed up the process and implement them?
Yes. One of the problem is the capacity of our technicians to understand how to work with these new digital models. For this reason, we are working to share this information. This is basic because when something talks about a digital model, maybe in some occasions they are talking about the 3D model or the economical model, but we are talking about more. It's very complex, so it's not easy to incorporate this way of working into day by day. You need to work, you need to learn, and it's our responsibility to share our knowledge to work in that way. I will talk later about this, and in that case, it's not a question of future; it's a question of present. This is our present. We work with a lot of the software that creates digital models in a 3D way. Allplan, Revit, Bentley, etc. We incorporate into these softwares the information from our database, and we extract all of this information to the this kind of software. This kind of software can identify all of the information and create a lot of simulations and calculations. This is the idea. The idea is to incorporate the life cycle assessment, the total life cycle assessment of a building in a BIM circle. So it's to combine 2 main concepts, the digitalization and the sustainability. And this is we are working today. If this is an example of our software that you can identify not only the material, also the transport and also the machinery that we are using in our construction works. So you can change your machinery that are consuming soil by machinery that consumes electricity, and you know the less impact about CO2 emissions of your construction work. For sure, today we work in the product and construction phases. It's something that it's clear for us. We know the price of a construction because we are working in these phases. But the idea is to work with the future phases. It's not an idea from tech. This is something that maybe it can be familiar with you. Peter Drucker says that the important thing is the future of the present decisions. And
I like it a lot.
Yes, me too, because we have enough information today to have decisions at the present and to know their consequences in the future. This is the idea, and if there are a lot of information to make these decisions, and it's impossible to do this manually. So if you want to know which is the future impact of the use, of the future impact of the end of life, it's something that you need to do in this kind of way of working. I am finishing my presentation. And
so that was a wonderful way like to conclude your presentation. Let's focus then on the future of the present decision. Unfortunately, I'm watching my watch. It's like 3 p.m. 01, so we're running out of time. But before saying goodbye to all of you, I'd just like to ask a very last question to both of you. Hope that Thomas is still with us. I had the chance recently to talk to the coordinator of another EU project, and he was telling me that basically without further investments, massive investments in the bioeconomy, we will never reach the net zero emission target by 2050. Way more consistent investments in technologies than those already scheduled and foreseen by the Green Deal, and that at the European level we need to simplify enormously the procedures, because the delay for the authorization of the needed technologies might discourage the investors. So last question for both of you. I don't know if in our audience there's someone from the European institution, but let's send a message, a call to Brussels. So what would be your message for Brussels to make your job easier and to speed up the implementation of this kind of solution? Thomas first, and then Licinio.
The government has to organize what is possible. The market is the government has to organize what is necessary. The market is doing what is possible. And if something should be possible, it should be organized by the government. So the speed for development is defined by the government and not by the market. So there's a huge responsibility by the political leaders in all those countries to organize it. And let me say one thing, 2050 is much too late. We have to organize it in 7 years. And it's not about money, but we have to invest in our mindset and about our awareness that we are dependent on everything what makes our life possible.
And if I may add something, especially in such a peculiar historical and geopolitical context as the one we're living and experiencing right now, with the war in Ukraine, the energy crisis, the risk is maybe to get a bit more distracted by the present and not thinking of the future, while we always have to keep it in mind.
But Diego, let's hope of more crises, because if you see what happens in the last 6 months about the energy discussion, I think if we wouldn't have an energy crisis, we would have discussed this maybe in 2040.
So at least a positive side effect. So Licinio,
yeah.
your call to the European institution. Sorry, Thomas, for cutting you, but we're a bit late. Licinio, your message for Brussels?
It's two things that I have in my presentation. Share the knowledge. We need to create new master, new graduates to share all of this knowledge. This is basic. And the second one is that we are working with Brussels. This is the future webinar that we have with the European Commission, with the Joint Research Center, and we will talk about this new manner to do the thing. So they are listen us, and they are to understand how we can manage all of this information.
Okay, so before thanking you both, we're unfortunately really running out of time, but don't worry, I'm speaking to my audience, to our audience, because since I don't hope, but I do know that you enjoyed this webinar and that you want more, I'm pleased first of all to announce you that iTech and Turn2 will be once again together for another webinar during the EU Circular Economy Week. So it's from October 3rd to October 9th. So you'll have the chance to explore further these topics we just anticipated a bit today. So this is just to be considered the beginning. And so I want to thank a lot Licinio and Thomas But before really leaving everybody, I'd like to also share with you and leave you with a let's say circular quote by the French economist Serge Latouche, who once said that knowledge and humans' relations are among the few goods that gets multiplied by being shared and used. So my invitation to all of you is behave circular, speak of this webinar, share its knowledge, and especially as soon as it will be available, share the link and spread the word, because these things have to be known and everything starts by sharing information. So I thank Licinio, I thank Thomas. That was
Thank you.
just the top of the iceberg, but please go deeper into it. And a big thank you also to Icons and Houseful Project staff who worked behind the scenes to let this webinar happen. I hope you'd enjoyed it and watch it again online and share the link. Bye to everybody.
Thank you, Diego.